Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. So the setup, the background and everything might look very different today because we are going to do a challenge. We're going to try to learn CSS and maybe recreate a look of a website or something. Maybe that may be a part two. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and uh, learn it from this website. It's gigs for gigs, and yeah, come learn with me. Okay. So without any further ado, let's get started. So first, we got a lot of stuff over here, and let's go. So already, yes, I did do some CSS before, but I've completely forgotten about it. Maybe I know how to style a paragraph, maybe add color to it, or something like that. But yeah, and maybe I've tried best. Yeah, I tried my best to complete this tutorial for you guys. Let's get started. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It's a style sheet language that is used to style and enhance website presentation. So it has three main components of a web page along with HTML and JavaScript. Now, okay, CSS adds the style and makes it visually appealing. Okay. Uh, I don't need this history. We got a lot, guys. We got a lot. All right. Let's first pick up the introduction to CSS. Is a language designed to simplify the process of making web pages presentable. It allows you to apply styles to HTML documents like prescribing color, font, spacing, positioning. Okay. So this is how your website will look without a CSS. Now, if you use CSS, you can see that pretty much you made it so good. So yeah, a CSS selector is a pattern used to target HTML elements so that specific style can be applied to them. Selectors allow developers to select elements by tag name, class ID, attribute, state, or precision by making it possible to control the look. Okay, okay. So when you're talking about selectors, is see when you're familiar with HTML tags, the CSS can not you know be a difficult one. I mean, not I didn't know, I didn't go in depth, but I'm just telling, like, you don't need to like go and see each tag names and be like, what is HTML? What is HTML element tags and so on. So selectors can target elements by tag, class, or AD. Okay, so we already had these in HTML, if you know. Yeah, and you can select elements. What do I mean by elements? When I mean element, it simply means, let's say, you want to style H1 tag. You want to style the H1 tag or the P tag or whatever tags in HTML. You can simply go ahead and just do using these selectors. Okay, and selectors can target elements by tag, class, or AD. So these are like you know um we give it to a specific element. Okay, um so basically we want to uniquely identify an element. We used to give them a tag like class or ID to uniquely identify an element. For example, you have a H1 tag. Now you can have several H1s in a single web page. Let me show you. So this is the web page, and you got here a H1 tag, a paragraph, H1, a paragraph. Now let's say we want a specific style for certain for example, let's say this is also H1 and this is also H1. I don't know if it's actually H1, but anyway, you want to have this in a different color, and you want to have this in a different color. Okay, so let's say you want this to be red and you want this to be blue. Now, so to have different um, different styles for same HTML elements, we use tags to uniquely identify them. Okay, and we give a class if we want to, style the same thing for a group of elements. We give ID if you want to style, elements that are unique. So combinations allow selecting elements based on hierarchy or sibling relationship as well. Okay. Attribute selectors target elements with specific attributes or values. Okay. Pseudo classes, pseudo elements. Okay. Pseudo classes means our first child. Oh my god, I'm not knowing this. So let's see whether we go inside, deep inside, we would know. So this is how your CSS works. So the below is a diagram and will explain you the working of a CSS. So first I'm loading HTML. So first I'm loading HTML, and this is load HTML statement here. The browser will request the HTML file from the server. You receive the HTML document as text, and then you pass the HTML. That means the browser will read and tokenize the HTML, converting each tag into nodes for the DOM tree. Now you build the DOM. So now the DOM structure is built and represents all pages and elements in hierarchy. And then when we load CSS, when browser finds a link or style, loads the CSS files, an external file CSS is render blocking, and pass the CSS. All right. Actual pixels and rows, colors, body syntax. We also combine painted layers into the final image and final visual output is displayed on the screen. Alright, let's just go to the syntax of CSS. So the CSS syntax defines how CSS rules are written so that the browser can interpret and apply them to HTML elements. So we got here a selector, and then we got here a property, we got the declaration blocks, and then we got the value over here. So the selector will target the HTML element we want to apply the styles. In this case, it's the h1. So then this is the property. The property is nothing but what you're going to do to that element, and then the declaration block. So this is the block right over here. This one and this one. So inside the block, you can give your properties and values for that selector. So selector will target the element, HTML element that you want to apply the style, and declaration block is then cast in curly braces, and it contains one or more declaration. And property will specify the style attribute here. So color is for the text color. Text color is what we call color. And the value will define the property setting here, blue for the text hue, and the overall structure will form a CSS rule. So you can see the rule over here is for the h1 element, I need the text color to be blue. So let's try it out and let's see. So I'm going to click on the run code and see the output. And you can see over here, the HTML code is h1 hello world, and paragraph is this is a simple paragraph. Now I simply go ahead and see the style rules over here. H1 color is blue, and property, this is the property, this is the property, and this is the value. We also got font size over here, 24 pixels, and we got the color green, the property, font size 16 pixels. In the above example, the selector H1 element targets all the H1 element on the page. Now this style is applied to H1. We'll set the text color to blue and the font size to 24 pixels. The main important thing that you need to note here is all H1 elements. Yes, it doesn't specify any class or ID, so we aren't selecting anything based on its unique name. We're just simply selecting the element. So you can see over here, the next thing that we pretty much want to talk about is CSS selectors. There is a universal selector that applies styles to all the elements. See over here, we got a star, margin padding. I guess we'll see in the coming, coming over here. And type selectors target specific HTML elements. So over here we got the h1 element. We're targeting this HTML. And then we got the class selector. Now the class selector means you'll use a dot over here. an ID, you would use a hash before the name so of your HTML element. So this is the HTML element box. You're giving a border, padding, background color. We'll see them. The declaration of the block in CSS syntax. Each declaration consists of a property and a value separated by a colon, and each declaration is followed by a semicolon. See over here that you got a property and you got a value for that property, and then you got semicolon. So properties or the aspects of the selected element you want to style, like color, width, and height. So the color will define the text color. The background color will define the background color of an element. The font size will set the size of the font. The margin will specify the space around an element. And padding will define the space between the element content and its border. So we'll take a look of these later. But for now, you know that the color is now that we saw. It's actually pretty simple. And this will be seen later. But remember that how to declare. So basically for this part, we're just trying to, get familiarizing with the syntax of CSS and nothing else. You do not need to know about anything. Just remember what are selectors and the syntaxes in the CSS for now. You don't want to worry about, these. Now we're going to talk about grouping and nesting of CSS selectors. Now over here we got three elements of the HTML. We got the H1, H2, and H3. And over here we have the property that we learned for text color, its color, and we're given here dark blue. And remember that we're not just going to read whatever is given in the website. We'll be also doing everything in another website and see how it goes. Then we got here nesting. So UL is another list, and inside of it we'll have an element called list. So you can see list style type is actually square. So this is called nesting. So you nest one element and another element. Pseudoclass or pseudo elements. So this is actually simple, or used for styling specific states or parts of elements. For example, this is an anchor tag, and at first it will be in a different color, but when you try to go over that element and you hover the element, you want the color to be green. Now we will implement all of this, so don't worry. And first line, font weight will be bold. Okay. It will target the element based on a particular state, and pseudo element will target the element on the basis of a particular part of that element. For example, the first line should be bold. Even I do not know this, so let's just go over. I'm trusting this website, and let's just go over and see more. So over here we got the selectors with an example. Okay, now CSS selectors are used to target HTML elements on your page, and basically that's the thing that you do on each and every single code of your CSS. You want to target your HTML elements on your page. So over here we got the universal selector, we got the element selector, and we got the class ID selectors. Now talking about the universal selectors, we'll be using something called the asterisk. Now it'll select all the elements on the page and apply the same style universally. For example, setting the font color for every element. Let me just run this. And you can see over here that we got two elements in the HTML tag, the header text and the paragraph text. And when you apply the star, it's going to color it entirely red. Now let's talk about the element selector. Now element selector will target all elements of a specific type, such as a paragraph or headers. For example, we are trying to set up a common font size for all of these paragraphs. You can see over here, the paragraph will be styled with the font size 16 pixels. Now let's talk about class selector. And remember, if you're talking about class selector, you want to use a dot when you're selecting class. So over here we have a button and we got the class button, click me button. Now if you're not giving this button, if you're taking over the dot over here, and let's say you take over the dot. Now let's just say you take over the dot and you got only the button. Now when you got only the button, people think that you're mentioning the tag name, but you do really want the tag. If you don't really want that element, but we want to select the class, the elements that contain the class button, okay? So that's when we use the class selector. Let's go talk about the ID selector. The ID selector will style a single element identified by its unique ID. For example, let's take a div element. We're given here the ID header, and we want to change the background color of that header. We simply give hash before mentioning it over here in the style. Next, we're going to talk about combinator selectors. Now, it's used to define the relationship between the selectors, allowing you to style elements based on the hierarchy or positioning in the document. The common combinators include descendant, child, adjacent, and general sibling. Okay? For example, if you're talking about a descendant, it will mostly be with the space. If you're having a child element, you do the greater than symbol over here, mentioning your child right after this symbol. Adjacent sibling and general sibling. To be honest, I really do not know about the child. Let's go read more and let's see whether they've included all of these tags. So first thing is a descendant selector. It'll target an element that is inside another, such as a paragraph inside a div. For example, you got a div over here, and then you got a paragraph tag over here. So what do you do simply? You just see div p, and then you get the color red, right? That's how you style that specific paragraph. Now, remember that this doesn't style all of the paragraph. It will just style the paragraph that is inside the div. Let's talk about child selectors. They only affect the direct child elements of the parent. For example, we got a div tag over here. So we got first div tag, okay? And then we got a paragraph tag inside of it, and another div tag that has a paragraph inside of it. Now let's just run this program and quickly see how it goes. Now you can see over here, margin left 20 pixels. And you can see the subtle changes that you got over here. Okay. Now the margin left 20 pixels is being applied to only one of the paragraph and not both. They only affect the direct child element of a parent. Okay. So over here we got div in the p, and it only affect this paragraph because this paragraph is only the child of this div. Okay. And this is not a direct child of this div. This is a child of this div. Okay. And also remember that this div doesn't act as a parent because you already got a parent outside. Adjacent sibling selector. It will style an element immediately following another. For example, making the first paragraph bold after H1. So for example, you got a H1 and then a paragraph. Okay. So over here, you can see that the next to H1 paragraph will be immediately styled to font weight bold, but the next paragraph won't be affected. See over here that this paragraph that is after H1 is being styled to bold. The general sibling selector. General sibling selector will style all the siblings that follow a specific element. For example, italicizing all paragraphs following H1. So you can see over here, can you guess what it would do? This paragraph and this paragraph, both the paragraphs that follow the H1 tag will be immediately, italicized. Okay, so let me run the program and you can see over here that it's quite different from the adjacent sibling selector. Adjacent sibling selector always styles the element that is right after the element that you specify first. For example, h1 plus p. But over here, we got it slightly different. Next, we're going to talk about attribute selectors. Attribute selectors target elements based on the presence or values of their attributes. Okay, let's take a close look over here. So over here we got the input tag. Type is text, and the placeholder is text input. Okay, now it selects element that contains a specific attribute. For example, styling all inputs with a type attribute. So over here, we only want to style input tags that has a value, type value. Okay, type attribute. So you can see over here that we're doing border, 2 pixels, and solid block. Now you also got here some things you can target the elements with the particular attribute values as well. So this will target elements only with the attribute type. So if you have any kind of type, it's going to target. But for what if you want to only target type text? You can simply give it inside the square bracket. Type is equal to text, and it will just, only change the value that has the type text. Substring matching. Now it kind of matches the elements where the attribute will contain a substring. For example, your styling link with HTTPS in their href. So in anchor tag, there is an attribute called href where you give your links that you want to navigate through in your website. In href, you give your link as HTTPS or HTTP. Now you do want to style for only anchors tags that have a link that has HTTPS as a substring. So you can see over here that I'm trying to use this symbol over here. Now it kind of matches. It checks your links whether it contains HTTPS, and if your links contains that, it'll make it the color green. Wildcard selector. Wildcard selector will match the element where the attribute value contains a specific string. For example, underlying links. For example, let's say both of the links contain HTTPS, and we want to have an exact value called example over here. Alright, this is what we do. Let me run the program really quick, and you see over here that both of the links has got underlined. Okay. And another thing that I really want to talk about is text decoration underline is default in anchor tags. As you know, if you create an anchor tag, it's always underlined. So if you given something else, I don't remember exactly, if you give some other CSS styles, you can actually make it not underlined. Alright, let's talk about serial classes. Serial classes in CSS define the special sets of elements for styling. Example, hover applies when an element is hovered. First child targets the first child of a parent. Nth child targets the second child. Let's talk about here. When the user hovers over them, changing the color of the link when hovered. So overriding this link, you can say the color will be changed when we give a colon hover. See the effect over here? When I go and keep my mouse on it, it changes the color, and when I back off, it goes back to the default color blue. Focus. It styles the element when the user focuses on a particular element. Let's run the program and have a look. You can see over here, when I go and try to type something, or when I just go ahead and click this input box over here and trying to focus on this element, you can see the outline becomes solid red and 3 pixels. So this is great when you want to, when you're creating a login for in your website, and when the user just clicks on it, it just pulls up, meaning that you're currently typing or currently working on this element, this part of element. First child. It will style the element which is the first child of its parent. So you can see over here that we got P first child color brown, which is the first child of paragraph. let's see while running it. You can see over here that the first child paragraph, first child. This is the first child, and this is the second child of the paragraph. Now, in the paragraph tags, you have childs. When you're talking about childs, for example, you got a div tag, and the div tag is the parent of two. I'm so sorry. So the div tag is a parent element of two child elements. This is the paragraph, and this is the next paragraph. The first paragraph will be the left child, and the second paragraph is going to be the right child. So now I'm talking about the first child, it's hello 1, and then I'm talking about the second paragraph, it's hello 2, last child. It starts the element which is the last child of its parent. Over here, the second paragraph is the last child of its parent. Let's try adding another paragraph. Let's see how it goes. Hello 3. Hello 3. So you can see hello 3 is the one that got its change because it's the last child. Not. Not helps to remove. Yeah. Not helps to remove a particular element from the styling index or styling context. So you see over here that we got the class 1 over here, which is hello 1, and class 2, hello 2. You can see here that none of them, like the class 1, doesn't have the color blue to it, right? Because they told you not. They gave the value not. Not. It will help to remove a particular element from the styling index or styling context. Alright? Color. Oh. Okay. Just a trial, just to see whether. Yeah, okay. And let's talk about the pseudo elements. Yeah, we're gonna complete CSS lectures. Don't worry. So we got here pseudo elements. Pseudo elements help to access and control a specific part of element for inserting content before an element or inserting content after an element, targeting any specific part of a word or sentence. It's usually used to beautify the internal content of an element. So over here we got before. Now, basically, you don't have to worry about a lot of things over here because see, we're trying to learn about selectors and it's a lot confusing. See, you will never know about these until we use them, on to make a website or something. So for now, we're just trying to learn the contents. Okay, we're just trying to learn. We aren't trying to implement it. We aren't trying to really do anything with them. Okay, because we have to learn a lot of properties. We have a lot of style properties to learn from. But the reason they gave lectures before itself is just to know that these stuff is there, and knowing them before getting into deep into CSS is a better way for you to actually help you think about it whenever you're trying to style an element. You can actually do them. You can actually do these. So there isn't always a single way for you to select an element and style it. There are plenty of ways that you can select your element and style it. All right. So first thing we're going to talk about is before. Now, I'm again mentioning that you do not need to know these things in depth or know these stuff so well because it's our first day of learning CSS and the first day it was very vague. very pink, and we can implement a lot of it. And don't worry, I'll be bringing a lot of exercises, and we'll be doing them. But for now, it's just to get you, familiarizing with these stuff already. See, they aren't a big deal. I would say that, you can simply write these in one go. You don't have to really sit. Like you're in a programming language where there are a lot of syntax. So when you're seeing big programming languages and seeing CSS, it's actually not of a big deal for you to write these. Just have to know what it is. That's it. So here I'm gonna run this. And to be honest, I'm telling you guys, I don't even know what is tab index, but I'm just trying to understand based on the content. It will just try to add something before your element. For example, a star over here, and then it will try to add this welcome to GFG. So just know what these stuff will do when you try to put them in an element, right? CSS isn't about just selecting an element, just giving a color or background color. You really be acting, really be knowing these lectures. You can pretty much change your styles dynamically. It, see, your website isn't going to be static. If you take a look at any website, it isn't always going to be static. It's always going to be changing. It's always being dynamic. It's always changing. So we really need to know about these lectures to actually work upon it. So when I talked about this one over here, you can see that if you didn't add this last child, would it really be doing the giving the color green for this last element when I just suddenly added it to it? For example, let's say I'm trying to add another element as well. Sorry about that. So if I try to add another element, you simply see that it tries to give the color to that last element. So that's how things actually work in a website. And you do need these structures if your website is changing dynamically. So let's talk about after. After, it helps to insert some content after an element. That's it. So don't really need to know about these stuff. Just take a look at them. First line, that is the first line of a text within a block element. So let me run this. You can see this styles the first element. And then first letter, I'll just run this for you. And you can see that it styles your first letter to be the color red and the font size to be 23 pixels. And you often see this in every single website. You see the first letter being bigger or in a different color. Placeholder. So you can see in input tag, you do have a placeholder. And if you want to style your placeholder, you can simply give this. Okay? Enter your name. All right. So that's it for today's video. It's the part one, so there are a lot of things to learn, and we'll see these in the coming days. Thank you for watching. So yeah.